Welcome, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to join us today. My name is Dawon Hawkins with Xcelrate UDI, and today we're going to be diving into the challenge that I know hits home for everyone running a healthcare facility. And that essentially is, how do we actually manage our medical devices, biologics, and consumables, as well as our equipment? Now, these aren't just line items that exist on a spreadsheet. They are essential tools that keep our everyday operations moving and keeping everyone operating efficiently, especially as it relates to keeping our patients safe. But let's be honest about one major pain point. Too often, instructions for use or IFU documentation that's required to actually utilize these items gets treated as a bit of an afterthought. It gets either shoved into massive paper binders or buried in static PDF repositories that, quite frankly, nobody in the building completely trusts to be up to date. So today, we're here to flip the script on that exact pain point. We're going to be exploring how your facility can move away from that exhausting reactive cycle of manual IFU management tools and transition towards a proactive, intelligent-driven approach. Now, before we dive into all the details, a quick piece of housekeeping. Please feel free to drop your questions into the chat or use the Q&A feature at any point as we go along. We'll carve out some dedicated time at the very end to make sure we address those questions. And today, our goal is very simple. We want this time to be a practical educational resource for you, but also to provide real, actionable roadmap, something that you can take back to your teams to ensure your facility is 100% ready for any internal audit or any external survey every single day. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So, why are we dedicating time to this today? The reality of it is that no matter what your role is, this topic impacts your day-to-day work. Whether you're an executive looking at system-wide risk, whether you're an SPD leader managing the chaos on the front line, or a clinician simply focused on patient safety, this particular topic matters to you. So what exactly are we talking about here as it relates to hidden documentation crisis? Well, it's the kind of quiet issue that suddenly blows up into surgical delays and massive surgery headaches. The reality here is simple. When your documentation isn't current, or you are essentially gambling with your documentation, that means that you're gambling with your patient safety, and it means that you're gambling with your institution's integrity. But before we go further, let's take a look at the actual math. Think about the cost of a single canceled surgery because an IFU was missing or outdated. You're looking at roughly $5,000 in lost revenue and wasted materials right then and there. Now, take that frustration and apply it by the potential nightmare of non-compliance findings during a joint commission survey, and it adds up quite fast. And all of this is entirely preventable. Now, our goal today is to show you how you can stop managing by anxiety. We want to show you how to trade that uncertainty for a reliable system, one that's built on the solid verification and real-time access to manufacturer data. So let's look at how we get there. Now, these aren't just office or compliance issues. They are direct, real-time threats to your facility's ability to provide safe patient care. Now, we have to completely shift our mindset. We have to stop thinking about viewing IFU documentation as a secondary task or something that we have to get around to later. Rather, we need to shift our focus to realizing that this is a primary foundation for your clinical safety. Now, a lot of people think that they have solved the problem because they use traditional vendors like OneSource, for example. But those legacy systems often rely on entirely static repositories. Think of those repositories as nothing more than a digital filing cabinet. They don't actually talk to the manufacturers. So if a manufacturer updates an IFU for one of your medical devices, your biologics, consumables, or any of the manuals for your equipment, your internal library remains completely outdated. Now, why? Well, because we're stuck on waiting for someone somewhere to manually upload a new version to these repositories. And this, my friends, creates a massive version lag, and the real world consequences are incredibly severe. So, for example, we recently looked at a case with a mid-sized hospital where this exact kind of lag caused a major crisis. Their team was reprocessing critical orthopedic instruments used in a 3-month-old, completely invalidated protocol. Now, they didn't just get hit with a routine audit finding. They were actually forced to stop surgical operations entirely because their static library simply failed to reflect the manufacturer's critical update. Now, that, my friends, is the danger of a passive system. When your vendor is slow to react, they aren't the ones who are on the hook. The reality of it is that your department, your team, your hospital is the one that's paying the price for wasted time and canceled procedures and the severe compliance risk. Your critical IFU documentation and manuals for equipment has to keep pace with the tools that you use every single day. So beyond the day-to-day operational headaches, we also have to look at the shifting regulatory sands we are seeing right now. Take ISO 13485, for example. Now, this was recently updated in February of 2026, and it remains the absolute gold standard for quality management in medical devices. This standard explicitly mandates that you must demonstrate a clear, proven ability to provide services that constantly meet strict regulatory requirements. But as most of us in this room already know, the bar has been risen. It's no longer enough to tell an auditor that you either intended or were going to follow the rules, but that your policy says you must do. But you actually have to demonstrate with hard evidence, and that's the absolute latest IFU documentation is readily available for your staff to use at the point of use. Auditors from Joint Commission or state agencies are completely done with accepting the quote unquote "we don't know" as an excuse for outdated protocols. They're looking for systematic, foolproof approaches. And if your processes simply cannot prove that it is pulling from the most current manufacturer data, your hospital is fundamentally non-compliant. Now, these expectations have changed, and our systems have to change with them. Now, when you boil it down, this all comes down to three massive pillars: regulatory compliance, patient safety, and staff efficiency. The unfortunate reality is that current hospital processes, along with legacy IFU documentation vendors like OneSource, as an example, have completely failed to innovate. They simply aren't meeting the needs or solving the friction points that your teams are experiencing every single day. And that, my friends, is exactly where we step in. These exact issues are the core pain points that Xcelrate UDI's IFU Vitals platform is built to solve. Now, we're here to completely eliminate that stressful, quote unquote, workaround culture that we all experience. And we do that by eliminating the heavy lifting. We provide a platform that finally lets your team start hunting down paperwork and keeps them focused on clinical work that actually matters. Now, look at what happens when you have a system working for you instead of against you. First, when your when your reprocessing decisions are driven by accurate real-time data, you drastically reduce risk and actively protect patient safety from preventable infections. Second, when your IFU documentation is constantly audit ready, you completely avoid the massive and exhausting resource drain that comes with reacting to those citations and trying to fix things after the fact. And finally, we prove that efficiency, safety, and compliance don't have to fight each other. They aren't mutually exclusive goals. Rather, they are neutral, direct result of a well-managed documentation workflow. And ultimately, by centralizing compliance, safety, and efficiency into one seamless process, one of the things that Xcelrate UDI does really effectively is help your facility completely shift its paradigm. We move your teams away from viewing compliance as a completely exhaustive administrative chore and instead ground it as a true safety standard. When critical IFU documentation for your medical devices, biologics, and consumables is running smoothly in the background, a safer, more efficient facility naturally follows. So, how do we actually do this differently? At Xcelrate UDI, our core philosophy is fundamentally different from what's currently out there. We don't rely on those legacy static libraries that are just serving up outdated, duplicate materials. Instead, through our IFU Vitals application, we connect your facility directly to the manufacturers to retrieve current, validated IFU documentation and manuals in absolute real time. Now, by building that direct bridge, we completely eliminate that dangerous quote unquote version lag that we talked about earlier that plagues these legacy systems. Ultimately, you no longer have to cross your fingers and hope that the paperwork is in your system matches reality. And further, we didn't build this platform in a tech bubble. We designed it for the real world. There's no heavy build time, no multi-month implementation headaches, no zero complex administrations overhead. This is truly a plug-and-play solution that is incredibly user-friendly interface, and it's ready to use on day one. We built IFU Vitals specifically for SPD techs and the nurses on the floor and the people who need accurate answers about their medical devices, biologics, consumables, and equipment in a matter of seconds, not minutes. And with Xcelrate UDI, your teams get total accuracy without the technical burden because it actually makes our lives easier and ensures that when a team is willingly adopts the technology rather than fighting against it, everyone wins. So at the end of the day, our value goes far beyond what's just providing great software. We deliver a critical layer of support that others simply do not. 24/7 expert assistance. If your team pulls up an IFU for a medical device, a biologic, or consumable and finds that it's incomplete, it's missing, or contradictory, they don't have to guess. They don't have to waste time debating what to do. They simply reach out to us and we become your direct advocate. Our team contacts the manufacturer ourselves to track down the issue, resolve the issue, and we handle the paperwork, we handle the manufacturer follow-up, and we preserve your valuable hospital resources for what truly matters most, and that's the patient experience. With that said, we aren't just another passive database. We are truly an active documentation partner. We take it upon ourselves to resolve that ambiguity so that your staff can stay completely focused on clinical throughput. And that's the fundamental difference between a software vendor and a true compliance partner like Xcelrate UDI. Additionally, think about the cultural shift that happens when your staff feels 100% confident in their information. Everything changes. They spend significantly less time hunting through binders or second guessing their data, and they spend more time on those vital clinical tasks that you have hired them to do. By providing instant, verified manufacturer instructions and manuals, we protect your facility from massive compliance gaps historically associated with complex probes, transported devices, and vendor-managed products. Ultimately, it's about building an environment where the staff trust their data and that trust directly reflected in the quality of their patient care. And when your team clearly knows the how and the why behind a protocol, safety improves naturally, and the stress levels within the department significantly decrease. To really illustrate what this looks like in practice, I'd like to share a recent case study that highlights exactly what's at stake. In this case study, during a recent Joint Commission survey, one of the organizations we were working with was facing some incredibly significant risks. An infant warmer mattress had the wrong IFU documentation, a radiation ring that was used with absolutely no instructions on file, and a critical sterilization pouch had zero validated methods that were attached to it. Now, I want to be clear. These weren't just minor clerical errors or missing paperwork. These were severe patient safety hazards sitting right on the floor. So how did Xcelrate UDI step in to help? Firstly, we immediately jumped in and acted as their direct advocate. Within 24 hours, our team had tracked down and secured the fully validated IFU documentation that they desperately needed. But we didn't just stop there. We went a step further and spearheaded the development of custom SOPs, or standard operating procedures, tailored entirely to their specific real-world facility workflow. This gave their staff absolute clarity on exactly what to do, which completely turned things around for this particular organization, resulting in a vastly improved compliance and a highly successful RFI-free survey. We didn't just come with them and hand them a document, we delivered a comprehensive solution that made their entire hospital safer. Because the truth is simply this: our services go beyond the basic audit support. The long-term result of that engagement wasn't just about passing a single survey. It completely transformed how that hospital approached device management. So by shifting away from that kind of exhausting manual discrepancy management and moving to a more proactive model, they liberated hours of critical time for their infection control, supply management, and SPD teams. Now, this is the absolute future of healthcare, a model where your documentation systems work for you, completely eliminating your operational efficiencies that plague your day-to-day work. And ultimately, this is about reaffirming your facility's commitment to clinical excellence. It's about ensuring that your team is fully prepared, not just for the next audit, but for the next patient that's walking through your doors. So with that being said, we're going to move into our Q&A session. And to help us handle our discussion, I'd like to take this opportunity to bring in Joan Melendez, our CEO here at Xcelrate UDI, to help respond to some of your specific questions. Welcome, Joan. It's great to have you here with us.
Hi, thank you so much. What a great deck you've provided with us. So thank you so much for all that information.
Thank you. And so we have a few questions that are already lined up in the queue, so we'll dive right into those. And for those of you that are on the call currently, while we're tackling these, please keep your questions coming. Submit any questions that you have using the chat feature or the Q&A feature. And I always remind people, when it comes to compliance, workflow efficiency, or clinical safety for your medical devices, biologics, consumables, manuals, etc., absolutely no question is too small. So keep those coming. So Joan, let's look at the first question we have here. And this says, we waste so much time chasing down the right IFU for every tray. How long does it actually take to find a validated document in your IFU Vitals software?
Well, let's start out with a great question there. So, well, we're built for a search to action speed. So staff can search by the manufacturer, the catalog number, device name, and get a validated manufacturer IFU in seconds. The goal is to stop staff from leaving the assembly processes to chase documents and to get them directly the instructions that they need.
Awesome. And next question is, if Joint Commission walks in today, how does this give us an easy way to pull a report and prove that we're compliant during an unannounced survey?
Well, one of the things that we like to do is we like to know when you're in your survey window, first off. So we send communication out as soon as we know your survey window to remind staff how to use our system. IFU Vitals is designed to support a panic-free compliance. Instead of scrambling to prove staff, have the current manufacturer IFU, you can quickly pull information that shows the IFU's manuals and related documents that are available and accessible to the team super easily and very quickly in order to be compliant with an unannounced survey.
Great. And the next question we have is, we've had OR delays because of IFU issues. How does this solution actually stop the operational bottlenecks, or is it just another digital repository?
Well, we're not a repository. IFU Vitals is an operational tool. We link directly to the manufacturers. So you have everything in hand. And again, we work directly, as you said earlier in the presentation, we work directly with the manufacturers to make sure that there are no bottlenecks. We review all the IFUs before we release them as well to make sure that they are not missing any, important steps like, the point of care cleaning, which is often overlooked, or, simply, being unclear as to instructions that are needed in order to maintain a device in between the time that the department's maintaining it and their biomed departments are. So we really do strive to make sure that there are no operational bottlenecks. And again, we're available 24/7 by email, by using within our application a need a document request so that we can be there basically at the elbow with staff.
And that thank you for that. That sounds like definitely acting more as a compliance partner than just a repository, which I think is the game changer in the environment.
Yes.
Next question is, we're already drowning in systems that don't talk to each other. This might be coming from an IT person. How hard is it to integrate with our current stack without months of IT work?
Well, that's a great question. We're designed to plug into existing workflows and not create another headache. We utilize for devices that have barcodes on them, for example, you can simply scan the barcode on that device. We work within our environment. We're driven by APIs, so we integrate very easily with any other application and have not had to take months in order to do so.
That's really promising. And we've been able to see that in real time with implementations across
Yes.
multiple systems, multiple health systems in record time with very little downtime to get up and rolling. So
Yeah.
that's great to hear. Next question. Oh, I think this is going to be touch a point a lot of people are experiencing. We are stuck with one source, and it feels like we're paying for more every year for the exact same stagnant product. What makes IFU Vitals different?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. IFU Vitals was really built to solve the frustration of having needed IFUs. For example, I heard that some biologic integrators that are under a dental module for one source. We are one. So it doesn't matter if you need an IFU for a biologic, for detergent, even office equipment. We will add in all the directions for use as we are able to obtain them. And we do not charge for, just because you are only looking for, one type of group or category, you get it all.
Yeah. And what I love about that particular question is that as we have conversations with healthcare systems, surgery centers, et cetera, particularly who are using vendors like OneSource, the lack of knowing that there are more innovative, more cost-effective solutions as alternatives that provide a better quality of service is just not commonly known. So I really appreciate that
Right.
question that was asked.
Yeah, just to
Um,
add on to that, the workflow supports all the departments, right? SPD, the OR, infection prevention, biomed. We have also associated the safety data sheets. So if a particular product has an SDS, we're going to present that information. Biologics, they have to be registered yearly. So we check that registration as well.
And just to follow on to that, Joan, how does that functionality compare to, other, IFU documentation providers like OneSource or anyone else that's out there?
Well, since we're linking directly to the manufacturers and validating the devices that they are registered with the FDA, that's a big difference that we haven't seen any other vendor, doing that level of of care in order to protect the staff and the patients, by reviewing all of the IFUs to make sure that there's a drying time at the end of the sterilization. There's a lot of IFUs that are incorrect, that are incomplete. I'm working on one right now that I just received this morning, where again, they're using gravity temperatures, saying it's for steam sterilization or heat sterilization. So, I think that's really helpful for staff in order to really partner, as you said earlier.
Yeah, and that's also something that we hear that has is an experience they do not have with other vendors that are
Right.
providing kind of similar services. Next question is, oh, okay. This one says, we have a mix of old and new instruments from different vendors. Will this system handle all of our specific device models, or do I have to hunt through a manufacturer website or upload item master details or things like that?
Yeah, that's a great question because, there are often times that we have mixed trays. We'll have Acumed and Carl Stores and just a bunch of different manufacturers within a tray. We actually do build IFUs and associate by a tray. And then again, that's where we leverage a SOAP to link all of the different IFUs within that tray together. And then we have the overlay of, what the exact steps are to reprocess. And it goes again from the point of, hand off the point of cleaning at the point of care, all the way through storage. So it takes all of those IFUs and make sure that they're compatible with one another. We have found where there have been devices that have been in trays that they've been reprocessing, with certain parameters, and come to find out there was this one instrument in the tray that shouldn't have been in there. So we usually pull those and have those peel packed because the parameters are so different.
Thank you for that. We do have a couple of other questions that have come in. So I'm going to bypass the next question and amp those because it looks like it's been upvoted. This one
Okay.
comes in from says come from Tamara from Clorox Healthcare. She says one of our biggest challenges is helping end users navigate cleaning and disinfection instructions within the IFU and which disinfectants are actives and approved compatible. Can you
Uh,
review how IFU vitals can help here?
Yeah, that is a great question. So we're actually working with the health system now that is wanting to actually reduce their number of chemicals, and that can be challenging because when you have, a bunch of different, instruments or that require, or the IFUs actually state a particular detergent or a particular product, we then work with the manufacturer to say, okay, you're listing in your IFU this particular product. We don't get those in the US or we don't use those. Can you modify your IFU to be an equivalent of this product? So while we're working with that, with the manufacturers, we also work with the manufacturers on compatibility charts so that we can then relate that back to review of the detergents with our clients. And that's one of the things that we do offer, Dawon, is, we definitely want to look at, what equipment do you have? What
Mhm.
consumables are you using? Even a Sharpie, for example. Sharpies are not they don't have an IFU. Sharpies should not be being used within a sterilization area, but people just don't know that. So,
I think that's a radical statement there, Joan.
yeah, no, but we actually have the documentation from Sharpie. So, we can clearly say that, so which is good. But we definitely go and we do go beyond and really try to identify, what are those chemicals that you're going to be using to make sure that you can process those with your equipment and
Yeah.
and the instruments.
Hope that answers the question. And there's a follow-up question also. It says, I'm not sure if you're familiar with what APIC, Association for Professionals in Infection Control and Epidemiology,
Yes.
if I can say it correctly, epidemiology, is actively addressing challenges with problematic IFUs. For
Yes.
example, situations where no commercially available disinfectant is listed. They recently released a risk assessment framework to help guide end users in those scenarios. And as part of that guidance, they recommend that healthcare teams reach out directly to device manufacturers for clarification on written approval or written approval on what is
Ex
approved, which can be
exactly.
time consuming for end users. And I think we talked about that at the ISO
Exactly. Yep.
update. So the question is, given that it might be valuable to collaborate with APIC on this topic as well. Do you see a potential role for IFU Vitals in helping streamline or support this type of engagement?
Oh, 100%, 100%. We do work with a lot of different work groups. I sit on several. I am actually looking at becoming a member of APIC so I can sit on their work groups to, have the voice or at least be able to give some help and assistance. And then, not only because they're the ones who are going to give the recommendations. We're actually going directly to the manufacturers and saying, hey, your IFU is a great attempt, but it needs to be stronger. And we're actually having them formatting them. We're looking at when they're writing their IFUs to make sure they're including every section that they're supposed to. So we're really taking an active role in, with the manufacturers and are looking at how can we then take that same amount of, role with APIC and others.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think again that also speaks to just the importance of having a partner in your documentation management. And I think the
Yes.
benefit that Xcelrate UDI has is as we get clarity on other IFUs that you might not necessarily or your facility might not necessarily have run across yet, that becomes part of our total offering. Is that whether it's an issue that's raised with clarity around one specific facility for one particular IFU, all of those insights are can be shared with others, which is a really
Right.
great benefit. Um,
Right.
okay, just a few more questions here. The next question is, when a surgeon is waiting and we realize a tray isn't set up correctly, we don't have time to call around. Can we access these IFUs even if we need to verify a quick cleaning or assembly step?
Yes, yes, definitely. IFE Vitals is designed for fast access from anywhere. You can access it on your phone, you can access it on an iPad. It doesn't matter where you are, as long as you have a connection to a browser, you can use IFU Vitals.
Awesome. And again, I think that speaks to the attention that's being placed on ensuring that this tool is not just tied to a particular desktop, that it's actually designed to be used in real time by actual end users.
Yeah, and we're going a step further as well, Dawon. We're an agile application, so which means that we listen. So we've had suggestions from some of our users, hey, we really want to have a favorites and a way to share our favorites. So that's one thing that we're working on right now. A better way to do a search, so you can search, if you're looking for a scope, you can simply type in scope and it's going to give you a list of all of the scopes in the system.
I love that you mentioned that, Joan. Can you expand on the topic of product enhancements and how those are handled? I know a lot of times other service providers, IFU vendors will introduce new functionality, and that becomes either a new module that you have to purchase or becomes an increase in cost to your existing subscription. How does it handle with Xcelrate UDI?
Yeah, we notify you that we've gotten this request. We roll it out, we train on it, we roll it out, and there's no added cost because it's just improving our application. It's improving, the ability for staff to take care of patients. And this is all, wrapped around patient care and patient quality of care.
That's great. Thank you. Last question we have is, this is, I think, very important in terms of implementation. My
Mm.
staff turnover is high. How long does it actually take to train someone on this software so they're not slowing down our assembly line while learning it?
Yeah, IFU Vitals is built to be intuitive and easy to use. So staff do not need lengthy training to search for a device. You simply click into, our new quick search field, and you can type in the catalog number. You can type in a partial of a name. You can type in a manufacturer name. So it's really easy to be able to search. We make it very intuitive. We have, training documentation. Our training, which is also at no charge, takes 10 minutes, and we schedule them one-on-one. We schedule them with the team. And we also have to remember that we have other shifts besides the first shift. So, the second shift and the third shift, they're as important as the first. So we have our services available 24/7 as well for staff. And one thing I don't think we mentioned is, and I'm seeing a lot of it right now, is a lot of manufacturers, because of the ISO 13485, they're updating their IFUs to be more
Mhm.
compliant. So as we're seeing these, IFUs being updated, I'm also seeing a lot of safety notifications being sent through the FDA, and the recalls that include safety notifications. If you really look at the number of recalls,
Mhm.
80% of the recalls have an IFU related component.
Mhm.
So if an IFU, or if I'm sorry, if a device has been, a safety notification has been issued on a device, we will pop up saying that, safety notification, there is a new IFU for this device, so that, just in case somebody has an older version in their cabinet, they'll reference the new one.
Yeah, I think that you bring up a really good point there, Joan, is that um, these kind of updates to IFUs are happening at a moment's notice. And when you have a vendor or an existing documentation management system that's reliant upon someone doing the work instead of digitally automatically connecting technologies together so that you're minimizing the risk of using something that's outdated, it
Right.
further exacerbates the potential risk that a lot of facilities may be experiencing with their patient safety practices.
Yes, yeah. We also have functionality we didn't go into too much about. We have buttons within our application that actually, you can press a sterilization button, you can press a cleaning button, you can press a storage button, and it'll actually go out and read the IFU for anything that has that information. And, so it can read a 500-page manual and bring you to the section that has that exact, cleaning instruction that you were looking for.
And I think, again, you bring up another really good point in terms of just not only the practical use of a proactive IFU documentation and equipment manual system like this, but also being designed for the end user. Oftentimes, being able to navigate between an IFU or manual that's hundreds of pages just to find the cleaning instructions, just to find these, those extra seconds or minutes to find that information is time that's non-productive and can be better spent if you could just click a button to get to them quickly. And that's a functionality of IFU Vitals that you won't see with other vendors.
Yes.
Well, I want to say thank you so much for all those fantastic questions, everyone. As we wrap up today, I want to leave you with one final thought, and that's that with Xcelrate UDI, you aren't just buying a software, you're gaining a true partner. We're a partner that actively advocates for you. We continuously validate your data, and we handle the back-end headaches to ensure that your facility is 100% ready for any survey that walks through your doors. And together, we can completely eliminate that guesswork surrounding your IFU documentation and protect your frontline staff from that unnecessary operational friction. So if you want to learn more about IFU Vitals and how it can transform your workflow, or if you'd like to schedule a personalized demo, please visit us over at xcelrateudi.com. Let's work together to finally get your teams the support that they truly deserve. And as a reminder, we'll be sharing a recording of this video presentation with all of you, and it will also be posted on our website for easy access later on. And with that said, thank you, Joan, for all of your insights and sharing those details with us. And thank you all so much for spending your time with us today. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful day.